The aftermath of silence. The crystalline halls of the Galactic Council had witnessed countless debates, declarations, and decisions that shaped the fate of 1,000 worlds. For 3 millennia, representatives from every major civilization had gathered here, their voices harmonizing in the Great Chamber like a cosmic symphony. Yet today, an unusual tension filled the air, thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. Ambassador Kex Theta of the Vortanian hegemony shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her 6 eyes scanning the vast assembly. Something was different. The usual diplomatic chatter had died to whispers, and every delegate seemed to be stealing glances at one particular section of the chamber. The human section, empty for 50 standard years. "They say they're coming today," whispered Counselor Zim from the neighboring Altarian delegation. His translucent form flickered with nervous energy. After all this time, Kex Theta's mandibles clicked dismissively. Rumors. The humans were destroyed in the Zorathian conflict. Everyone knows this. But even as she spoke, doubt crept into her voice. The reports had been inconsistent. Some said Earth had fallen. Others claimed the humans had somehow survived, changed by their ordeal into something else entirely. High Chancellor Morvek called the session to order, his ancient voice carrying the weight of centuries. The ethereal being's form shifted like living starlight as he spoke. "Honored delegates, we gather today to address matters of galactic importance. But first, we must acknowledge the unusual circumstances surrounding our agenda." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Everyone knew what he meant. 50 years ago, Morvik continued, this council made a decision. When the Zorathian Empire launched its campaign against the Sol system, humanity's representatives stood before us, pleading for intervention. They invoked every treaty, every promise of mutual defense. And we. He paused, the silence stretching uncomfortably. We voted no. The words hung in the air like a confession. Kex Theta remembered that day vividly. The human ambassador, tears streaming down her face, had begged them to reconsider. The Zorathians were known for their brutality, their complete annihilation of species they deemed inferior. But the Council had calculated the risks. Earth was too far, too isolated. The Zorathians were too powerful. Better to sacrifice one young species than risk a wider war. They had all agreed. Every single vote had been cast against intervention. Now, as Kex Theta looked at that empty section, she wondered if they had made the greatest mistake in Council history. The Zorathian War, as it came to be known, should have lasted weeks. The Zorathian fleet was massive, their technology superior, their reputation for genocide well-earned. Earth stood alone, abandoned by the very council that had promised to protect emerging civilizations. But something unexpected happened. The war didn't end in weeks. It dragged on for months, then years. Reports became scarce, filtered through second-hand sources, and intercepted transmissions. The Zorathians, who had never failed to completely destroy a target species, found themselves locked in a brutal conflict that defied all predictions. And then, 5 years ago, the reports stopped entirely. Not just from Earth, but from the Zorathian Empire as well. An entire star-spanning civilization had gone silent, and with it, any news of humanity's fate. Until today. The main doors of the council chamber were massive, designed to accommodate beings of all sizes and shapes. They opened slowly, dramatically, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. 3 figures entered, just 3. But their presence seemed to fill the entire chamber. They wore simple black uniforms, devoid of decoration save for a small blue and green sphere on their shoulders. Earth. But it was their eyes that drew attention. Hard. Cold. Ancient in a way that had nothing to do with age. The lead figure, a woman with gray-streaked hair and a face marked by scars, walked to the center of the chamber. She carried no weapons, no ceremonial items, no diplomatic credentials. Just a small device that she placed on the podium. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber without amplification. "I speak for Earth. I speak for humanity. And I have come to show you what your silence cost." The device activated, projecting holographic images into the air. The Council watched in growing horror as the story unfolded. Earth under siege. Cities burning. Billions dying. Children huddled in underground shelters as Zorathian death squads hunted them like animals. The images were raw, unfiltered, showing not the sanitized warfare the Council was used to, but the brutal reality of genocide. "You left us to die," Chen continued, her voice never rising, never showing emotion. "When we begged for help, you calculated the cost and found us wanting. Too young, you said. Too primitive. Too far from your core worlds to matter." The images shifted. Now they showed humans fighting back. Not with advanced technology or sophisticated strategies, but with desperate determination. Civilians turned soldiers. Scientists working in bombed-out laboratories. Children learning to build weapons instead of toys. "But we didn't die," Chen said. "We adapted. We evolved. We became what we had to become to survive." The final set of images made several delegates gasp. Zorathian ships, their infamous black hulls cracked and broken. Drifting in space. Zorathian worlds, once centers of their empire, now silent and dark. And at the center of it all, a massive structure that no one recognized, clearly of human design, but incorporating technology that shouldn't have been possible. "The Zorathian Empire is gone," Chen stated flatly. "Not defeated, not diminished. Gone. Every ship, every colony, every world. We gave them the same choice they gave us: surrender or face extinction. They chose extinction." The chamber erupted in voices. Questions, demands, expressions of disbelief. How had humanity, barely capable of interstellar travel, defeated one of the galaxy's most powerful military forces? Chen raised her hand, and silence fell instantly. There was something about her presence, an authority that transcended rank or position. "You want to know how we won?" she asked. "We won because we had no choice. Because when you have nothing left to lose, you'll do anything to survive. We weaponized our desperation. We turned our fear into fuel. We took their technology as we killed them and made it ours. We became the monsters they accused us of being." She paused, looking around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate who dared to look back. "And now we're here. Not to rejoin your council, not to seek your approval or your friendship. We're here to inform you that humanity has changed. The species you abandoned is gone. What remains is something new, something forged in the fire of your indifference." Ambassador Kex Theta found her voice. What do you want?" Chen smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Want? We want nothing from you. We've learned to take what we need. But we're offering you something. A chance to redefine your relationship with humanity. On our terms." The hologram changed once more. It showed star maps, trade routes, defensive positions. But everything was different. Human ships patrolled sectors once controlled by the Zorathians. Human colonies dotted systems throughout the galaxy. Human technology, evolved beyond recognition, protecting borders that hadn't existed before. "The galaxy has changed while you sat in your chambers and deliberated," Chen said. "Humanity has claimed the Zorathian territories. We've freed their slave species. We've opened trade routes you thought impossible. We've become what you feared we might become, a power that doesn't need your permission to exist." High Chancellor Morvik finally spoke. "You speak of change, but what you describe sounds like conquest. Have you become what you fought against?" Chen's expression didn't change. "We became what we needed to become. Nothing more, nothing less. The Zorathians came to exterminate us. We returned the favor. But unlike them, we don't seek to rule over others. We seek to ensure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else." She gestured to her companions, who had remained silent throughout her presentation. "We've come with a proposal. A new charter for the Galactic Council. One that has teeth. One that actually protects its members instead of calculating acceptable losses. And if we refuse, asked Counselor Zim. Then you continue as you are, Chen replied. And we continue as we are, separate. But make no mistake, the days of humanity begging for your help are over. We've learned to help ourselves. She picked up her device, and the holograms vanished. You have one standard rotation to consider our proposal. We'll return tomorrow for your answer. Without another word, the three humans turned and walked out, leaving a chamber full of beings who suddenly realized that the galaxy they thought they knew had changed forever. As the doors closed behind them, Ambassador Kex Theta noticed something she hadn't seen before. The empty human section wasn't empty anymore. Somehow, without anyone noticing, it had been cleaned, repaired, and prepared, ready for humanity's return. But on their terms, not the Council's. The age of human vulnerability was over. The age of human strength had begun. And the galaxy would never be the same. Thunder at the gates. The next day arrived with the weight of destiny pressing down on the Galactic Council. No session in its 3,000-year history had generated such anticipation, such fear, or such uncertainty. Overnight, every intelligence agency, every diplomatic corps, every military strategist had worked to verify Admiral Chen's claims. The reports were unanimous. Everything she had said was true. Ambassador Velix of the Crimson Dynasty stood before a gathering of senior counselors in the pre-session meeting. His chitinous form trembled with barely contained anxiety. My people sent stealth probes to the former Zorathian core worlds. They're not just destroyed. They're transformed. Human colonies, human infrastructure, human fleets, and the technology. He paused, his compound eyes dimming. The technology surpasses anything in our databases. Impossible, declared Counselor Prima of the Celestial Harmony. Her melodious voice carried undertones of disbelief. The humans were level 2 civilization when we last assessed them. To achieve what you describe would require them to cannibalize Zorathian technology and improve upon it, interrupted High Chancellor Morvik, which is exactly what they appear to have done. Our greatest fear has materialized. A species forced to evolve through existential crisis, unguided by our wisdom, unrestricted by our conventions. The chamber filled gradually as the session time approached. But unlike yesterday's fearful whispers, today's atmosphere crackled with electric tension. Delegates who had ruled their sectors for centuries found themselves uncertain, looking to neighbors for reassurance that wouldn't come. When the main doors opened this time, the human delegation didn't enter alone. Admiral Chen led a group of 12, men and women of various ages, all bearing the same hardened expression, all wearing the same simple black uniforms. But behind them came others, beings no one recognized. Tall, slender figures with crystalline skin. Squat, powerful creatures with 4 arms. Delicate, floating entities that seemed to be made of living light. The freed slaves of the Zorathian Empire, Chen announced without preamble. They stand with humanity now. Their voices deserve to be heard. High Chancellor Morvik's form flickered with surprise. This is irregular. These species have no standing in the Council. Neither did we, once. Chen interrupted. Yet here we are. The galaxy has changed, Chancellor. Your procedures must change with it. She gestured to one of the crystalline beings. It stepped forward, its voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. I am Sylvia of the Quartzine Collective. For 800 years, my people served the Zorathians. We built their ships, maintained their technology, died in their wars. When the humans came, we expected new masters. Instead, they offered us freedom. And more, they offered us partnership. The 4-armed creature spoke next, its voice deep and resonant. The Vornak were bred for war. The Zorathians made us their shock troops, their expendable warriors. The humans found us in stasis, thousands of us waiting to be deployed. They could have used us as the Zorathians did. Instead, they woke us and asked what we wanted. For the first time in our species' history, we had a choice. One by one, the freed species told their stories. Each tale was different, but the theme remained constant. Humanity had come not as conquerors, but as liberators. They had taken Zorathian space, not through mindless expansion, but through careful alliance with those the Zorathians had oppressed. You see, Chen said when the last had spoken, humanity didn't just survive. We learned. We learned that strength without compassion becomes tyranny. That power without purpose becomes oppression. The Zorathians taught us how to fight. But our own suffering taught us why fighting must sometimes be done. She activated her device again. New holograms filled the chamber, star charts showing the new order. Human space wasn't a conquered empire but a confederation of free worlds. Former slave species worked alongside humans as equals. Zorathian technology had been shared, improved, distributed. This brings us to our proposal, Chen continued. The Galactic Council was founded on noble principles: peace, cooperation, mutual protection. But those principles failed us when we needed them most. They failed because the Council lacks the will to enforce them. The chamber stirred uneasily. Several delegates exchanged worried glances. We propose a new charter, Chen said, one with 3 fundamental changes. First, the mutual defense clause becomes mandatory. When a member species is threatened with extinction, intervention isn't subject to vote. It happens automatically. Protests erupted from several sectors. The economic implications, the military commitments, the potential for manipulation. Concerns flew like arrows across the chamber. Chen raised her hand again. Second, the Council maintains a joint fleet, not controlled by any single species, but by rotating command. This fleet serves one purpose: preventing genocide. It acts when diplomatic solutions fail, and it acts decisively. More protests, louder this time. The sovereignty implications were staggering. Third, Chen's voice cut through the noise. Humanity assumes responsibility for training and equipping this fleet. We've become quite good at warfare. We'd prefer to use that expertise preventing wars rather than fighting them. Silence fell as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't seeking to dominate the Council. They were offering to become its shield. Ambassador Kextheta stood slowly. And what of our fears? What prevents humanity from using this position to control us all? Chen smiled, and this time it seemed genuine. Nothing. Nothing but our word and our actions, just as nothing prevented you from helping us when the Zorathians came. You'll have to trust us, as we once trusted you. The parallel was uncomfortable. Perfect. But unlike you, Chen added, we've proven what we do when others face extinction. We fight. We die. We sacrifice. Not because treaties demand it, but because it's right. High Chancellor Morvek's form shifted through several colors before settling on a deep blue. You ask us to fundamentally alter the nature of the Council, to accept not just your return, but your leadership in military matters, to trust a species that has, by your own admission, been transformed by war. Yes, Chen said simply, because the alternative is to continue as you are, and we've all seen where that leads. She gestured to the human section of the chamber. We've prepared our old seats. We're ready to participate again. But not as supplicants, not as junior members to be judged and found wanting. We return as equals, as protectors, as the shield against genocide that the Council should have been. The debate that followed was unlike any in Council history. Some species supported the proposal immediately, mostly smaller civilizations who had always feared the fate that befell humanity. Others resisted, seeing their influence diminished, their comfortable isolation threatened. But through it all, the human delegation remained calm. They answered every question honestly, addressed every concern directly. And slowly, minds began to change. Councillor Zim of the Altarians was the first major power to shift position. We've spent 50 years regretting our decision, wondering if we created a monster through our negligence. But look at them. They had every right to hate us, to seek revenge. Instead, they offer protection. They've become what we should have been. Others followed. The Vortanian hegemony, after hours of internal debate. The Crimson Dynasty, convinced by the testimony of the freed slaves. The Celestial Harmony, swayed by the elegance of the proposal. As the vote approached, Admiral Chen made one final statement. We stand at a crossroads. The old council died the day you abandoned us. What we're building here is something new, something with the strength to match its ideals, something that might actually achieve the peace we all claim to want. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of friends and former abandoners alike. Humanity is here to stay. The question isn't whether you accept us. The question is whether you'll join us in building a better galaxy. The vote, when it came, was overwhelming. The new charter passed with only a handful of dissensions. As the results were announced, something extraordinary happened. The freed slave species began to sing, each in their own way, their voices blending into a harmony that spoke of hope, of freedom, of new beginnings. Human crew members unloaded equipment into their section. Diplomatic staff took their positions, and at the center of it all, Admiral Chen stood with her fellow humans, no longer outsiders but architects of a new order. High Chancellor Morveck's closing words would be remembered for generations. Let the record show that on this day, humanity returned to the Galactic Council, not as the species we abandoned, but as the guardians we needed. May we prove worthy of their protection, as we failed to provide our own. As the session ended and delegates filed out, many stopped to speak with the human representatives. Apologies were offered, hands, tentacles, and various appendages were shaken. Relationships began to rebuild. But everyone understood the fundamental truth. The galaxy had changed. Humanity's trial by fire had forged them into something new, something powerful, something necessary. And in the years that followed, as the joint fleet prevented one genocide after another, as former slave species flourished in freedom, as the Council finally lived up to its founding principles, they all remembered this day. The day humanity returned, the day the galaxy grew up, the day weakness became strength, abandonment became leadership, and isolation became unity. The day war's echo became peace's foundation. The dawn of the human age had begun.